Kann man Scientology überhaupt reformieren? Und wenn ja, wie hin und wozu sollte es eigentlich gut sein? Weil ansonsten bleibe ich dabei, dass es wichtiger ist, die einfach kaputt zu machen. Danke.
Danke für die Frage. Wer will antworten? Jesse. Ja.
First off, that was an excellent question. Can Scientology be reformed? You have to ask yourself, reform to what? Scientology, let me just say this. When L. Ron died, they did an autopsy on him. And in the autopsy, you know, they did the blood work, and they found the substance Vistaril in his system. Vistaril is a drug that's prescribed by psychology and psychiatrists and doctors for people that suffer anxiety. Scientology, we just heard Jerry talking stuff, hates psychology, hates psychiatry, for the most part are against any type of medical treatment because Dianetics and Scientology are supposed to heal to a greater or lesser degree. So what is there to reform? The hypocrisy of the organization stinks to high heaven. You have the founder, the originator of the religion, taking these drugs, but not allowing the other people to get the benefit of medical. So what is there to reform? That's what I say.
Thank you for asking the question. One thing we need to have very clear in our minds is the way Scientology was set up and it operates, its ideology. The way Mr. Hubbard presented himself to the world was that he was perfect, he was always right, always correct. He never made mistakes. Everything he said and did was as it should be to achieve helping people, making people better, and improving the world with the ultimate goal of salvaging the planet, as he put it. The followers believe the same. That ideology continues to this day. How do you reform someone who thinks everything he says is right, everything he does is right, and will never admit to a mistake? Never. So the question is, yes, I think that the group does need reform. I am completely in favor of reform. The question is, how do you go about it? We know for certain that head-on, direct challenges do not work. Because the more we challenge, the more we sue, the more they stand and fight back. That is not workable. So if somebody else has an idea as to which way we can go with this, we'd be really welcome. I think some other way is necessary. But to think, for me, when I think of sitting down and having a pleasant conversation with a Scientologist and trying to get them to look at something alternate, it makes me sick to my stomach. And maybe it is only because of my track, the history that I have in Scientology. So, but maybe there are some other ways, and if somebody has some idea, please, let us hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was a good question also, and it's one that's worth probably more than 5 or 10 minutes of discussion. I agree with Hannah. I think it should be reformed. It's really not for us to tell a church that they have to reform, but I do think that, I mean, really, it's not. They have a right to their beliefs. There are a lot of different beliefs out there, and I think I find a lot of beliefs too far out for me to get involved with them. I just have to put it over there and say, okay, they're entitled to their beliefs. But at the same time, they are not entitled to hurt people. They are not entitled to inflict emotional, psychological, or physical damage upon a person. And for those things, they need to be watched very carefully. Education, I think, is probably the best tool that we have to help people. If you understand the 8 points of mind control by Dr. Robert Lifton, the manipulation that's involved there, and how Scientology uses all 8 of those points, and they're very complex. If you understand manipulation, there have been books written on how to recognize manipulation and how easy it is to manipulate people. If you understand those sorts of things and can pass that on to your offspring, your friends, your parents, whatever, your sphere of influence, then those people have something to come back to and say, okay, look, this is what they're doing, and because this is what they're doing, I'm not going to be part of that, and they can walk away, and it's a lot easier to do that. There's always been, in America we had what we call snake oil salesmen. I don't know if you've heard of that or not. That's somebody that sells you something and it's really not what they say it is. And that's certainly what Scientology has done. They promise you one thing and you probably will not get that. I know I didn't. But yeah, I think that they just need to be watched. People need to be educated. I think that's the best way to do it. And there should be penalties. You know, if they break the law, there should be penalties. I don't believe they're a church. I really don't. I think that they may have some religious beliefs, but I don't believe that they are engaged in church-like activities. It's very hard for me to believe that part. Thank you.
Jesse möchte noch was ergänzen, und wenn denn die Gäste aus Amerika nichts mehr dazu sagen, dann würde ich auch gerne aus meiner Sicht dazu mal eine Einschätzung abgeben, wenn es denn...
I just wanted to make one clarification, if I could, on the point of reform. If you stripped Scientology of the hypocrisy of the subject itself, and if you brought logic and reason to Scientology, it would no longer be Scientology. The subject would no longer exist. So this is why I don't feel it can be reformed. I mean, reforming Scientology, to me, I mean, it's kind of like taking human waste and maybe making it into fertilizer. I mean, that's about as far as it'll go. That's all.
Jesse, is it possible to reform it without removing all the technology?
No.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to say is that in the United States, in terms of reform, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm trying to get the labor laws enforced in regards to Scientology. Currently, Scientology pays $250,000 a week to 5,000 employees. That's how much they make. All 5,000 employees are paid $50. Adds up to about $250,000 a week. If the labor laws were enforced in regards to Scientology, that amount would go up from $250,000 a week to $4 million a week. So they would be paying out over $200 million a year in labor costs. They don't make $200 million a year internationally. So for them to have to pay that amount just in the United States, I think that alone would reform it pretty quickly. So people ask me, is it a business, is it a religion, or is it a cult? I say it's a business. It's, in the end, it all boils down to the money. That's That's what Scientology is about. It's the only philosophy that exists where you have to pay every single step of the way, and they charge inordinate amounts of money for products that they produce. They produce lectures that cost. They released a set of lectures this past January, and the lectures consist of 130 CDs in these plastic binders, and they release that to their members, and they're charging their members $7,500 for this set of lectures, 130 CDs. Now, I worked at the place that produced the CDs, and I, for a fact, know that it did not cost them more than $100 to produce those lectures, but they're selling them for $7,500. So for someone to say that it's not about the money hasn't actually looked at the subject. And in terms of reform, I think that is one of the straightest paths to reforming them, because if they don't have any money, then that's it. It's over. So, that's what I'm doing. So.
Ich finde, Mark hat sehr praktische Vorschläge gerade eingebracht.
Okay, I think that it's an important orientation toward handling Scientology isn't necessarily destroy them or something, and the reason why is because you will get a lot of objections just from general people about people are free to believe what they would like to believe, okay, as crazy as the things may be or whatever. But that's my personal viewpoint that I just wanted to express. I do not believe that Mike Rinder's viewpoint is to reform the church. I don't think he considers it can be reformed. That doesn't mean that he doesn't still believe in the technology. I've got a lot of friends who are still true believers. I am not, personally, but I do have friends that are 100% against it and 100% still for it. And either way, my viewpoint is people can believe in whatever they want to believe in, as crazy as it may be or as great as it may be. If they've had their wins or they believe this is true for them, okay, they're free to believe that. Where it gets abusive, against the law, violations of human rights, trying to control people's mind control, and the fact that it's become a dangerous cult, these things need to be exposed, it needs to be stopped, it needs to be campaigned against, it needs to be made known, it needs to get authorities involved, it needs to be litigated, it needs to be stopped. And in my viewpoint, the organization is totally contaminated, 100%. And I don't think that there is a chance of reform, and that's my personal viewpoint. But I think that the way to handle it is going to be on the campaigning against human rights violations and exposing those, because there's a lot of agreement around the world on fighting for human rights and standing up for what's right and exposing what's wrong and illegal and getting action taken on that. And from that, it will either unravel or disintegrate altogether. Yeah.
Amy, you said that it should be freedom to believe what they wish. But shouldn't there be full disclosure required as well, just like with a medical procedure, that you know what you're buying into, you know what you're going to get as you go up the bridge?
That's a major factor, is when you get into Scientology, you don't know what you're getting into. Not until sometimes people don't, even after 10 years or even more, ever achieve the upper levels and find out what it is that you're actually hoping to strive for. You pay lots of money to get there, and when you get there, you're going, oh my God, or whatever. Maybe some people get off on that, I don't know. But you don't know when you're coming in exactly what it is that is the full beliefs of the religion or technology or organization. So that also should actually be a requirement for them, so that you know what it is that you're walking into. There's a lot of fundamental basic things when you first find out about it that sound great, like this youth, what is it called? The youth? Yeah, Youth for Human Rights sounds awesome, you know, who couldn't get behind something like that? But what's the full picture? So they should be required to actually make that stuff known as well. Anyway, I think that that's a very good point, and that should be part of the reform as well.